Hello, everyone. I am just checking things here, and I believe we are good to go. Welcome. My name is Michelle Holmes, and today we are going to talk about the 3 keys to transform burnout. I am a workplace wellness consultant, speaker, author, and podcast host of the Flourish podcast. I am also a wife, mom, and recovering workaholic. So I am no stranger to burnout, and I am very eager to give this presentation to you today. So, we have a bit of an agenda here, a structure. We're going to talk about who this is for so you can know if you're in the right place, if you resonate with my content. We're going to talk about the 3 pillars of burnout, how it shows up for us, and then I'm also going to give you some reflection points that can help you on your journey because I like to have a pretty action-oriented kind of structure with how I give these trainings. So what I do as a workplace wellness consultant is I support teams and individuals to increase their performance at work, their resilience, and their creativity so that the individual and the organization can flourish. And I really do believe that happy, healthy employees can create sustainable, profitable organizations. So that's the lens that I approach my work through, and hopefully you'll find some value out of what we're going to talk about today. So, on my journey, I really wished when I was struggling with burnout and the things that I have gone through over the last decade plus, I wish that I had someone to be the guide for me. I wish that I had someone who was able to connect the dots. And I didn't have that. I kind of had to DIY my approach. So, my mission is to help you connect the dots in your own life by education. And of course, by guiding you with action taking as well. So, high achievers and high performers are typically the people who are in my community. And I believe that I identify as a high performer as well. I believe that we have so much to give. I believe that health is our wealth and that healing happens by way of the nervous system. So you'll hear me talk about the nervous system quite a lot in what I teach and educate on. I also believe that we are never broken. It's never too late. We are never too far gone. We absolutely can flourish. So, who is this for today? If you have signed up for this training, are you in the right spot? So, I was thinking about a few different things here, and I would love to know if this sounds like you. You're welcome to share in the chat if you'd like to share, but you don't have to. You can also just reflect on these for yourself to know. So, do you find yourself easily defaulting to anger, even when you don't mean to? So, are we having these reactions that don't match our intention of who we want to be? Can you identify with being stressed, overwhelmed, discouraged with life, wired but tired, or even depressed? Is it hard for you to focus at work or feel like you are motivated? Have you lost some of your motivation? Maybe you had it before, but you don't have it right now. Do you feel like you are shut down or tired, but sometimes you may even have anxiety? And do you see some physical manifestations of stress, like weight gain, headaches, gut issues, or insomnia? These are very commonly reported when I speak to clients with burnout. So, does this sound like you? If so, You'll really get a lot of value out of this presentation if you want to enjoy your work and increase your performance at work so that you can leave a positive impact in the world. If you're mission centric, you are my people. If you want to improve your health and your work life balance so you can be present with your family, that is one of my goals. If you're ready to take ownership of your own stress response so that you can get off the roller coaster of the emotional reactions that make you feel more stressed and actually feel worse about yourself because you don't wish that that is how you reacted. And if you're willing to look at a new perspective to connect the dots, then this is certainly for you today. So thanks for being here. So let's dive in. Burnout. I think a lot of us understand what burnout is now. We have talked about this. Everyone who's in like the corporate world pretty much has talked about this. We have colleagues, we have management, we've identified our own experiences. So, what is burnout? It's this state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. And this is certainly more prevalent than ever with the way that we work today. So, burnout for me, because I experienced this pretty intensely for a little while on my journey years ago, but it showed up in many different ways that I didn't really know were related to burnout at the time. And of course, now that I know what I know, I can look back and I can connect the dots. But for me, I had gut issues, I had joint pain, I was highly emotional. So I had a lot of feelings coming up, easily fatigued. I had panic attacks multiple times a day, both at work and outside of work. So it was really impacting. Not just my performance at work, but also how I was at home. At the lowest point, I even was crying in the bathroom and feeling very, very frustrated, very, very overwhelmed. I was losing weight without doing anything to try to lose weight, so I was getting pretty skinny. I had some skin issues pretty heavily with acne, so my skin now is like night and day from what it was, and I had no idea that was connected to my stress and being a physical manifestation of stress. I had little motivation and I didn't feel connected to my job anymore. So this actually was all coming up for me just a couple years after I had graduated college as a mechanical engineer, and I had one of my first jobs out of college, and these things slowly began creeping up for me. And of course, that's not how it was in the beginning. When I was in college, when I was uh, determining what to go to school for. I was very excited. I had a lot of energy. I felt great. I didn't struggle with anxiety really. That didn't come up for me a whole lot until I started experiencing burnout and these physical manifestations. So feel free to share or to internally share or know how your burnout shows up for you. So, with everything I know now, let's talk about the three pillars. So, I think it's really important for us when I was putting together this training of just taking a bit of a holistic look. So, my work always has like the mind, body, and spirit connection. I think that's really important for true health and well being and personal fulfillment. So, I broke this up into these three different pillars here. We have the physical toll that burnout takes on us. We have the disconnect from self, and we have core beliefs. And these three pillars are fundamental to our long-term growth and healing, both at work and outside of work. So, the physical toll. Anyone who has experienced burnout has had physical manifestations. Typically, that's how we know we are experiencing burnout. We get these giant signs now that, okay, yep, my stress is impacting my well being. There's lots of different ways that stress can impact our wellness and our physical body. So let's talk about connecting the dots for that. So I want to introduce the window of tolerance to you. You may have heard of it before, probably not. I would say I've never talked about this concept and someone actually knew what this was, but we're becoming more aware. So maybe you're one of the ones who actually knows about the window of tolerance. But this is something that was coined by Dan Siegel in 1999. And what this looks like is, I have this illustration, this graphic for you. You have this zone, and this zone is like this window here, and we fluctuate throughout that window. Sometimes we can go outside the window, but it's basically our capacity to respond to life. So you'll see here I say zone of functioning based on arousal or stimulation. That is essentially based on stress, based on the demands of life and work. This is our capacity to respond to them. And as you can see, we fluctuate within this window. When we're in that window, we can easily recover from a stress or a demand placed on us. We're able to manage our emotions and our reactions with pretty much little effort. Life just feels easier. So you can probably think of some times where you were in your zone, your window of tolerance. You were in that zone of functioning for yourself. Life felt pretty good. Things seemed to come to you pretty easy. You were able to recover from things that happened throughout your day, and it didn't derail you. Now, when we are experiencing burnout, among other things, with our biological stress system, we are outside of the window of tolerance. So we can be outside on either side of this window here. And that means what we're experiencing are symptoms and indications of dysregulation. So we're experiencing nervous system dysregulation. So we might feel overwhelmed. We might be unable to cope with stressors or demands, both at work and outside of work. Our fuse is shorter. This is one that I can absolutely relate to, because I would work when I had over the years different jobs and working in corporate America, and it always seemed like every once in a while somebody would just lose their cool. Their fuse was so short, and we would actually see how that played out in the workplace. We would see people losing their tempers. We would see some management needing to get involved, and oftentimes management was the one with their short fuse, right? So they're outside of that window of tolerance. We are not clear-headed when we're experiencing dysregulation. Our prefrontal cortex is offline. So we don't have our executive functioning to the same level. That fluctuates. And when we're experiencing dysregulation, we aren't the cool, calm, collected, intentional people that we want and wish to be. So we can be on two different sides. We can be on this hyper arousal side or this hypo arousal side. And hyper, we can think of fast. we can think, what does it mean to be hyper? So the symptoms that come up for people when they're in this hyper arousal state are anxiety, agitation, anger, feeling out of control, possibly feeling that fight or flight response kick on for them. When they're in the hypo, you think of, for me, I just kind of relate it to like thyroid. You can have like the hyper or the hypo. The hyper is the thyroid working overtime. You can eat anything you want pretty much and you will be skinny because it's just like it's going. Hypo is we experience weight gain. So we think of slower. We think of things that show up for people: exhaustion, lack of motivation, fatigue, depression, dissociation, where you are physically here but mentally somewhere else. It's a coping mechanism. We are in our freeze response. We are shut down. So these are the two separate states of dysregulation and some of the common experiences for people. What's important to know is it doesn't really matter what side you are on, you are experiencing dysregulation. And our window of tolerance varies based on situations and circumstances. So sometimes we have a pretty large window, and sometimes we have a shorter, smaller window. So popping out of that window can seem to be easier sometimes for us. Like it doesn't take a whole lot to pop us out of the window. Based on different circumstances and different situations that we're in. We may also have a window that changes based on or is even molded by the family support that we have, childhood experiences or trauma, and our own upbringing all impact our window and what that looks like. So actually what we want to do is have this bigger window where we can kind of fluctuate within that window and we're not going outside into dysregulation. Our environment and overstimulation can impact our window, and triggers and trauma that comes up for us throughout our day can push us out of our window. Now, I've spoken with people and clients about this window of tolerance, and the feedback I have gotten, and I can certainly relate to this myself when I was going through burnout, was that they actually would toggle between hyper and hypo arousal daily. So they might be having high levels of anxiety, but they also are exhausted. For a perfect example, the wired but tired feeling. So they are on both sides of the window. And that doesn't really mean anything to us other than we have this indication that we are becoming dysregulated. So the takeaway here is that the nervous system, the system that takes care of your stress response, is at the root of many of the physical manifestations of burnout. So it would make sense for us if we were thinking about overcoming this burnout and transforming it so that we could have better wellness on our journey and better performance at work. We need to focus on healing the nervous system. That will help us recover from our symptoms. Are you still with me? Okay, so a reflection point for you. Where do you typically fall with your window of tolerance? Are you within the window of tolerance? Do you find yourself being able to respond and have a pretty good emotional capacity for those stressors and things that come up for you? Or do you relate to some of those symptoms of dysregulation? I invite you to reflect on this for yourself to get some insight, some internal insight. Number two is disconnect from self. So, this pillar here. So, this shows up for people by what I see quite often is tuning out feelings, symptoms, and emotions. Or secondly is a word, I guess. Um, the second way this shows up is continuing in a role that is no longer aligned. Now, I work with organizations, and so my advice is typically not everybody needs a new job because then the organizations would no longer hire me. So I actually have two ways of looking at this. Of course, we for some people, there are things that they need to become more aligned with in their role. And at times, that's possible within the role that they currently have. But at times, if I'm going to be honest, then many people want to ascend in their organization. They want to get a promotion, or they want to make a lateral move to something that's more aligned, or they want to pursue something different altogether. And so it's like this group effort of success that's necessary here. But for today, I want to look at these two separate ways of how we disconnect from ourselves with it when we're experiencing burnout. So this is what I've seen. So many high achieving people find themselves stuck in burnout with little to no motivation. They may say that their work is no longer enjoyable, is way too high pressure. I am hearing reports of this quite frequently. They're not being heard or understood in their work, in their role with their management, possibly, or others around them. They're not supported. They feel that their work doesn't actually suit their unique gifts. And so we begin to have this fulfillment perspective that comes in. So we may not feel like we have a sacred calling in what we're doing. We might not feel like we have that sacred calling with what we're doing at work, or we might not feel like we have that sacred calling at all. So we feel lost. We feel deflated. We feel demotivated. We may not be doing work that is our passion or our purpose. We also may not have clarity on what those actually are, passion and purpose. And it doesn't mean something bigger. So, for the humans that I talk to on a regular basis, most of them actually do want to have this positive contribution to the world. I know for me, when I was determining what I was doing for the rest of my life, having this meaning and this impact, some would even say legacy, was really important to me for that personal fulfillment. So, we might also push down our stress and keep going. We might tune out our symptoms or that little voice that we have in our heads that's communicating with us. We might just tune that out. And we may be unable to communicate our boundaries or our needs. And of course, it might not just be that we're unable to communicate them, might be that we haven't clarified them for ourselves. So, disconnecting from our true self is a self-protective mechanism. This is basically like a coping skill. When we are continually not supported for any reason whatsoever, or we might feel that we're unable to reach our true desire, sometimes the easiest thing to do is disconnect from our soul's calling. Okay, so I'm bringing in the spiritual perspective here for sure. Sometimes we need that alignment there. We need that passion and that purpose. And if we're not executing on that, if we're not making moves, then sometimes the easiest thing for us to do is just to kind of push it away. We're not even going to deal with it right now. And We may also, if we feel we have no other choice but to keep going, then we might tune out the symptoms that we should actually be listening to. And this is extremely common. I've had a burnout survey that many people completed for me, and they gave me reports of this exactly, feeling like they had no other choice but to keep going. So, an example I think of is the guy who has a very high powered, high status, high paying job, and he supports his family. He's got a stay at home wife, he's got some kids, right? And he feels like he cannot make any move that wouldn't be a huge risk to the integrity of his family, their financial support, all of that. So he's feeling like he doesn't have any other choice but to keep going. And so for him, he did end up in a place where he was feeling very burnt out and very disillusioned and uninspired because of what he was experiencing for so long, that he should have probably listened to those symptoms. Those are indications that not everything is going well right now. We need to take some time for our wellness. Of course, this catches up with us. Of course. So many people will do one of two things here. So I told you I'd talk about these two paths. Many people will go on and they'll change their role. They will get the courage to go after their passion, their purpose, their sacred life calling, whatever you want to call it. They are the big stories that people love to say. I left my six-figure job and I started a coffee shop in Costa Rica, and I am more fulfilled than I've ever been, and money doesn't matter to me. You know, these big romanticized stories. And there's nothing wrong with that. People would probably say that about me because I left engineering to pursue this role in the mental health arena, helping people and educating as a workplace wellness consultant. Okay, so that's one route. Is they find, I need to do this for me, and they are willing to take that risk, and maybe they've put the things in place that they can take the risk, and they can make the move, whatever it is. Maybe it doesn't need to be the huge story. Maybe it's just I changed my role within the company, or I got a promotion and now I work with a different team and now I do something different. That's totally feasible. Or for the people who actually do enjoy what they do, or they did enjoy what they do before they got burnt out, they might want to tune in. They might want to create those boundaries. They might find a way to flourish within their existing role. And so, with the work that I do, I never want someone to feel like they have to take a risk or a jump that they may not fully be ready for, that might put their family finances in jeopardy, right? So, we want to be able to flourish within our existing role if that's what we want to do. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they want to do. They don't want to leave their job, they want to find a way to thrive within their company and within their role. For many people, they did find enjoyment previously, and so they just want to get back to that and they want to feel better. And so that's entirely possible too. So I invite you now to reflect. Which one do you need to do? Which route do you think is coming up for you as the little voice of, yeah, I should probably do this? That might be helpful for me. What is that? Okay, and our third pillar, core beliefs. So, core beliefs, I always use this GIF right here with the glasses on, and it's like the rose colored glasses. We all know that expression. We got our rose colored glasses on. And that's pretty much a metaphor for we're seeing this, our worldview is rosy. It's good. We're seeing good things here because we got the rose colored glasses on. So that's great. For a core belief, it's like the lens that we're seeing the world through. And sometimes it's not always rosy. So our core beliefs, they show up in different ways for each of us as the driving force behind some of these behaviors. So, the behaviors I'm talking about: people pleasing, inability to say no. This comes up quite frequently when I get into boundary setting, taking on too much, shutting down from our desires, feeling undeserving. That's actually a core belief in and of itself, this limiting belief of being undeserving, feeling unqualified for your role, or feeling like an imposter. I do have an imposter training. Please reach out if you want to take that imposter training. At the moment, it is a free training. Never having enough, whether that be enough time, resources, money, enough skills is another one. Perfectionism and self-criticism. So core beliefs are rooted in past pain. And I put past pain in here because that's really the way that we refer to like our past painful learning, our past traumatic experiences, whether big or small. I like to just think of it as our past learning that we experienced somehow, some way throughout our life's journey. So, an example here is if we have a dad who works really hard and we're growing up in his household, right? He comes home from work. We see him. We see how stressed he is. We see how unhappy he is. He's complaining all the time about work and coworkers and how hard you must work and that it's a thankless job and all of these things. So we're beginning to have that internal dialogue about what work is, right? You can probably relate to that in your own life. I know for a lot of people, they with parenting, this comes up for them in some way. Like we really become aware of some of our core beliefs because we say things like, "Oh, that's going to be so different for me because I grew up like this." So those are some of the experiences that really shape us. So our core beliefs are rooted in those experiences that we have kind of integrated into our belief system. So we have some common core or limiting beliefs that I typically hear about from high performers. Things like work is hard, or my salary means I must always be working. If you get a high paying job, suddenly that can, like if somebody gets a pretty large raise, sometimes that'll do things to their psyche and their ego, and they're feeling like, oh, I have to work 60 hours, where before I was working 40, but my salary demands it. I'm making a lot more money now, which that may not always be the case. I'm not worthy of support. I'm not worthy of a higher salary. I'm not worthy of help, or I'm not worthy of rest. This goes along with this one down here is I need to earn rest. That is a really big one for people who feel like they just have this ingrained belief of rest must be earned, and we can't get to the rest part unless we've done all the work and we've done a really good job. I know for me, that one was huge and something that I still have to work on because I am like a doer and I am constantly wanting to accomplish things. And so, this need to earn rest. We deserve rest, and especially when it comes to burnout. We also have I'm not good enough, or I'm an imposter. I can't trust anyone, or maybe it's I can't trust myself, so I don't have the right skills, or I can't trust myself to make the right good decision here. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough letters at the end of my name, whatever it might be. So, our beliefs are always stemming from this strong desire to keep us safe and away from our past painful learning experience. So, our belief system is formed, and we protect ourselves with that being internalized. So, core beliefs run really deep for people. And unfortunately, before we get here, let me finish. Unfortunately, when it comes to burnout, there are certain core beliefs that are driving us forward where we're not resting, we're not listening. Our perception of work is harmful sometimes to us. So, our core beliefs are the things that are really guiding us to overwork and to push ourselves, and maybe to not communicate our boundaries appropriately. So those are kind of how that functions with our overall burnout experience. So I invite you to reflect here on, do you have any core beliefs that come up for you that are impacting you negatively in your work? The thing about core beliefs is that they are unconscious, and we have to bring them to our awareness. And of course, sometimes we can easily identify a core belief for us and it really resonates. So I invite you right now to identify what that might be, and of course, to continue to reflect on how some of these experiences may have shaped your own worldview and your work view. Okay, so let's talk about healing from burnout. So, if we go back to the structure that I came up with for this presentation, we have these three pillars: the physical toll, the disconnect from self, and the core beliefs. If that is what I am saying is driving a vast majority experience of burnout, if not all, quite frankly, then how can we actually make the progress and take action? We need to address those. We need to focus on these three pillars here. So if we look at the physical toll, how do we heal? Well, we heal our nervous system, and we learn nervous system skills. Okay, we can do that. That's something we can take action on. These are things that we can find out how to do. We can DIY it. We can get some guidance if we need to get some guidance on that. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. I have resources. I have both paid and free resources, and I occasionally will do some coaching as well. So we want to heal our nervous system. So that's how you connect the dot for yourself, is if you're having this physical toll on your body where you're experiencing the dysregulation, the things that I mentioned earlier, then we do want to put our focus on the nervous system. That is our biological stress response system. This is made for our protection. This is made for our recovery of stressors and demands that come up for us. So we want to start there. That's where we learn these skills. If we look at the disconnect from self pillar, well, then we need to start tuning in. We need to start tuning into the wisdom that our symptoms have for us. They are communicating to us. And we also need to start tuning in to set and enforce supportive boundaries for ourselves and for others, right? So we need to have clarity for ourselves, and we need to also communicate that to the other people that we work with, that we live with, we are together with, that have an impact on our life. We need to begin building that connection back up with ourselves. If you want the resource for setting and enforcing supportive boundaries, please reach out. I have a resource for you, and I'm happy to give it to you as well. And core beliefs. So, core beliefs, what I'm going to say here, your first step to truly healing with the core beliefs is approaching our lived experience with compassion and curiosity. We are going to get curious about what we've been through. We're going to get curious about how that impacts us. We want to approach that, and we want to see the ramifications and kind of dissect our world view. Why do we believe the things that we believe? How did that come to be? That is one of the first initial steps when it comes to the core beliefs and recovering from those core beliefs and a negative drive that they have. Because not all core beliefs are bad, but some of them are driving us negatively into burnout. So when we heal, we create a new level of safety for ourselves so we're not a prisoner of the past. So this is really what healing looks like from the mind, body, soul, spirit perspective, is we want to heal by creating this new level of safety, because where we have ended up is from this self-protective behavior and this drive. So it's not that we have made all the bad choices in our lives. It's not that we have screwed it up. It's not that we have been fully taken advantage of. All of this, of course, there's areas that can be true for our experience, but it's rooted in these behaviors that have been implemented for us, by us, to keep us safe. And the nervous system is so crucial in that relationship. So we want to create this new level of safety so that the stuff that we've been through, our lived experience, is not going to affect us in the same way in the future. So if we really look at what does this actually mean for people, it means they get to come home to their true self. Our true self is not someone who is meant to be burnt out and meant to be tired and uninspired. Our true self is meant to have vitality, is meant to have purpose and excitement and joy. So we want to come home to that true self, and we want to be able to access that. And sometimes we just have to go through the healing process in order to get there. So we are meant to flourish. You know by now that that is my tagline here at Team Flourish. So let's stay connected. If you would like to stay connected with me, no matter where you're seeing this right now, you can get on my email list. This will give you access to the resources and the ways that we can work together and stay connected. I have free and paid trainings. Some of these trainings are fairly low cost trainings, so I try to make everything very accessible. So that's an option there. I have a 5-day challenge as well that's very accessible financially, and I offer workplace wellness workshops. So feel free to get on the list to hear about what I am currently offering and to stay in my world. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was valuable to you. If you have any questions or if there is something I can help guide you towards, please leave a comment or shoot me a message. If it's something a little bit more personal that you don't want to share, I'm happy to read what you have and see if I can provide any sort of insight for you. As I said before, it's my mission to help people connect the dots in their own life because I did not have that in my journey, and I really wished that I did because it took a long time and a lot of money for me to be able to really get into a place where I understood what was going on and how to recover from it. All right, my friends, thank you so much, and we'll see you later. Bye.